Hello and welcome to this special edition of Attacks of Opportunity. I'm your host, John Sprunk. In today's video, we're going to talk about a book I just got for Dungeons & Dragons, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I got this book on Thursday, and of course, I read right through it right away. It's very good, great presentation. If you have the other 5th edition books like Xanathar's or Volo's Guide, very similar presentation, same caliber of artwork and all that stuff. So a very good buy in my opinion. And my first initial impression was Tasha is another name for Igwilv, who is a famous witch in the world of Greyhawk. She has been chaotic evil, I think, since the old days of first edition, maybe beyond that. But now I guess she's sort of feeling in a good mood because she's giving us all kinds of tasty information, which we appreciate. But let's dive in. Okay, so chapter 1 is about character options, and there are a ton of them. This book is highly focused on how to customize your character, which I love. You can now swap out your starting proficiencies and skills, even your racial ability score increases. So if you want to have a dwarf that is more charismatic, you can take that +2 constitution bonus, make it a +2 charisma bonus instead. That's going to let players really customize their character however they want. And that's been a sticking point of mine for a long time with D&D, going back to the old days, is that certain races have these ability score bumps, right? And it sort of locks you into certain classes. It's difficult to justify a half-orc wizard, for instance, who's going to get bumps to strength and con, and in the old days would get a intelligence decrease. So getting away from the idea that each race has to have a certain ability score bump, I think is only going to help the game and make it more accepting of people who want to make these characters they have in their minds, but they can't quite get to what they want with the rules as written with the basic books. So I'm a big fan of that. That's awesome. And next they introduce an entirely new class. You might be familiar with the Artificer. This is a class that builds things. I'll be honest, I was prepared to hate this new class. I don't like mixing technology in my Dungeons and Dragons, so I was prepared just to ban this from my campaigns and not use it. But I read over it and I changed my mind very quickly. This class is far more based in magic than technology. Yeah, there's use of tools, like Tinker's tools and Smith's tools, which is fine. But most of the things you're going to be doing would be magical in nature. So it won me over. It seems really fun to play. One note, though, is that it also is a relatively complex class to play. So a brand new player might have some difficulty grasping the concepts, but if you've got a little bit of D&D under your belt, never fear, you'll be fine. Like I said, lots of utility with this class, and it has 4 subclasses, which is a little unusual out the gate. They are the Alchemist, which lets you mix up some potions for yourself and your party. Very fun, something that D&D fans have loved, alchemy classes for 2nd edition, and 3rd edition, that kind of stuff, and now we get it here for 5th officially. Also, the Armorer subclass. This is the Iron Man subclass. You can enchant your armor with special abilities, very similar to repulsor rays and jet boots. So if your fantasy is to play a D&D Iron Man, this is definitely the subclass for you. Next is the Artillerist. They're more focused on offense. You can make a magical turret like Torbjorn in Overwatch. You set it down, it shoots and helps you in combat. You can also make a magical gun for yourself. Very cool, more offensive though. And the last one is the Battlesmith, which gives you a robot companion that follows you around, protects you, does all kinds of stuff. So 4 very different subclasses, and all of them I think interesting. I know people in my group are going to be itching to try one of these sooner than later. Next, the book has some new abilities for the existing classes and also some new subclasses. And this, for me, is my favorite part of this book. I love expanding existing material for the players, classes and powers, that kind of stuff. So let's dive in a little bit, and I'll briefly touch down on each change for each class. So the barbarian gets some extra skills, which is nice, and they also get a little bit of bonus movement when they enter a rage, which is kind of cool. Mobility being one thing that sets the barbarian apart from other melee classes. And it has two new subclasses. The Path of the Beast. This one has great flavor. Pretty much it allows you to take on aspects of animals like claws or fangs or a tail even. You get some abilities with these things, obviously. Kind of cool. I'm not sure how it stacks up as far as potency with the other barbarian subclasses, some of which are very strong, especially in combat. But again, good flavor. If you want the barbarian that really hulks out and becomes like an animal, this is right up your alley. The second one is the Path of Wild Magic. This is one that some of my players were looking forward to reading about. In a nutshell, when you enter Rage anytime, you roll on a Wild Magic chart, and some effect comes up randomly. They're pretty cool. Some of them are just one-time things when you enter the Rage. Some of them persist round after round, and I think could really make combat quite interesting for your barbarians. So this one I preferred as far as the potency goes, but also good flavor for this one. The Bard gets a few more spells added to their class spell list, making them more versatile, which is always nice. They have two new subclasses. The College of Creation is it's a bit meh for me. I'm not a huge fan of this one. It gives you some new ways to use bardic inspiration. Not bad, but not my cup of tea. My favorite part of this one was animating performance, which is an ability that you can temporarily animate like a statue or a piece of furniture as a companion. So that's a cool idea. The second one is the School of Eloquence, which is going to be great for those silver-tongued devils out there, making you even more able to convince people to do what you want them to do. The Cleric also gets some new spells for their spell list, again, which is very nice. They can also use Channel Divinity to get back a spell slot that they have used, which is awesome because Channel Divinity can sometimes be really useful, but there might be times when you find you're not using it, but you're out of spells for the day. Boom, get one of them back. So that's a very clever and versatile function. I like that one a lot. So Cleric gets three new subclasses. The first one is Order, and the Order domain is kind of cool. If you want to be like a leader, you can use your abilities to buff and even partially control your allies to some degree. Similar to the Warlord class in 4th edition, it reminded me of. Very cool. The next was the Peace domain. This one's not really my cup of tea. It does give you some extra healing options and that kind of stuff. Not horrible, but I think some classes do this better. And I'll be honest with you, most peaceful subclasses, that kind of thing in D&D tend up not to be used at my table because my players love to get down and dirty with the combat. So that's just us. Your mileage might vary. The last one is the Twilight domain. This one I like a whole lot. It's got some interesting abilities. And also you get some really good domain spells like Fairy Fire and Moonbeam. So this is one I think that will become pretty popular at my table. The Druid also gets some more spells for their class spell list, and they have the ability now to summon a animal companion type familiar. The Druid has three new subclasses as well. The first is the Circle of Spores. This is one that I think has a lot of fans out there in D&D world. The necromantic type druid that uses fungus to reanimate dead corpses. Very cool flavor. I'm not sure how potent it will be at the table compared to the other ones. Druid has some really strong subclasses already. But it's very interesting. I'm sure there's at least one player at my table who someday might roll this up. Next is the Circle of Stars. The flavor's pretty good with this. You're pretty much a worshiper of constellations, the heavens, that kind of thing. But this one seems more potent to me. A lot of buffs you can give out to yourself and your group. I think this will be quite popular also. The next is the Circle of Wildfire. Yay, druids can now blow stuff up. This one looks really fun. It's got some great spells in the domain list like Scorching Ray and Flaming Sphere. Always popular at my table. You can now summon a companion that blows stuff up and even cauterize wounds at higher levels. This is one that I really think is going to get a lot of attention from various groups for the druids that want to be more castery and more offensive. The fighter gets a couple more fighting styles. Nothing too potent, but more options is always good. They can also swap out fighting styles at higher levels, which is something I usually house rule to let happen anyway. And for those fighters that have access to maneuvers, there's a few new ones as well, which is nice. And the fighter gets 2 new subclasses. The first is the Psi Warrior. This is the Jedi Knight from Star Wars. Force jump, deflect damage, telekinesis, that kind of stuff. All you need now is a lightsaber. Sunblade, anybody? So something that I've kind of house ruled in the past for certain campaigns. Now it's an official subclass, so hooray for the Star Wars fans out there. The next one is Rune Knight. This one allows you to harness the power of magical runes to gain strength and also become more giantish. I can see this one being very popular with my Goliath loving players. Goes right hand in hand with them. Now you can be bigger, stronger, more badass. And the monk gets a few cool abilities. They can change a weapon into a monk weapon so they can use it with their martial arts. They get the ability to do some more healing with their key points, and they can even potentially turn a missed attack into a hit. And they have 2 new subclasses. The first is the Way of Mercy, which is where your monk focuses more on healing. It's an interesting concept. I'm not sure that the monk needs this kind of a subclass, but I'm all for the versatility. And the second one is Way of the Astral Self, where you can tap into your astral essence to help you out in different things. One of the cool things being in combat, you actually get like 2 extra astral arms to help you punch and kick with. So kind of cool. The Paladin gets some new spells in their class spell list, like all the other spellcasters can. Like the Cleric, they can use a Channel Divinity to get back an expended spell slot, and they also get some new fighting style options, like the Fighter. The Paladin gets 2 new subclasses. The first is Oath of Glory. You can be like an Olympic level athlete. A little lackluster in my opinion, but if you have a campaign that centers around a lot of physical activity and physical challenges, it could pay off for you. The second is the Oath of the Watcher. Now you can be like Giles watching over Buffy as she kills vampires in Sunnydale. Interesting concept. I'm not sure it's a winner. I wasn't really wowed by either one of these subclasses for Paladin, which is a shame. Paladin's one of my favorite classes to play, but I don't think that the book did them a whole lot of justice this time. The Ranger is probably the class with the most changes here. The base Ranger in the player's handbook has a lot of great flavor, but it's rather underwhelming, mechanically speaking. This book aims to change all that, and it does a really good job, in my opinion. You're going to get new spells. You're going to get, they revamped the favored enemy mechanic, make it much more interesting, better survival skills, better everything, pretty much. And they have 3 two new subclasses, and they revamped an existing one. The existing one is Beastmaster, which I think most people will agree with me is one of the weakest subclasses in 5th edition because you have to give up one of your attacks so your companion can attack, which is horrible. This version updates it. No longer is that the case. Now your companion can attack on its own, and you can actually give up your attacks to give it additional attacks. So, and they also wrote rules for companions of the land, of the sea, of the air. I think it's a very welcome addition to the class. Makes it much more solid overall. The first new subclass for Ranger is the Fey Wanderer. You can add a little Fey to your ranging here. Good flavor, good mechanics overall. Not a lot of wow factor, but I think that's a solid choice. And the next is the Swarm Keeper. In essence, you're going to be able to control swarms of insects or arachnids. Great flavor. This one's like a lot of fun to role play. The mechanics are pretty good too. I think this is also a really good addition. I can't wait to see one in a game. The Rogue only gets one new ability in this book, but I like it. It's called Steady Aim. It lets you sacrifice your movement for your turn to get advantage on your next attack. So it could be quite useful in clutch situations. The Rogue gets two new archetypes. The first is Phantom, which allows you to tap into necromantic magic and energy to fuel your abilities. It seems really cool. The second is the Soul Knife archetype. If you're familiar with the X-Men comics and the character of Psylocke, this is right up her alley. This lets your rogue conjure psychic blades they can use to attack enemies and deal psychic damage. Very cool, and they also can use telepathy to talk to allies, which could help a lot on stealth missions. So I think this is a very solid addition to the rogue class. Next is the Sorcerer, who gets some new spells for their class list, and also a couple new meta magic options, which are good. They get two subclasses, two new ones. The first is the Aberrant Mind, which taps into the alien stuff like the old one, the Great One subclass for Warlock, tentacles, that kind of stuff. Very cool flavor. Mechanics are only so-so. But we'll see how this one stacks up in play. The other is the Clockwork Soul Origin. Personally, becoming more like a Modrone or a Construct isn't my cup of tea, but the mechanics here are very solid, allowing you to erect a shield around yourself or another player, and also you get access to the restoration spells, which are excellent for this class. So overall, it's pretty solid. Okay, the Warlock gets a couple new spells to their class list, of course. They get 8 new invocations, and there's a new pact, Pact of the Talisman, which can grant you bonus to ability checks. Not too bad. It gets 2 subclasses. The first is the Fathomless, which is all about water and tentacles. So, especially if you have like an ocean-based campaign going on, very solid choice. And even if you're not, this is a lot of flavor of tentacles smacking your opponents and that kind of stuff. Sounds very cool to me. The second one, though, is my favorite, maybe of the entire book of subclasses here. It's called the Genie. Your patron is a royal or noble genie and gets you all kinds of great powers. My favorites are you can get like a bottle, like the genie's bottle, and you can stay inside of it. It has like furniture and stuff, and eventually your whole party can stay in there with you, which should make it very fun to and easy to have long rests. And the second thing is at 14th level, I believe, you get the power to cast a limited form of the Wish spell, which lets you replicate any 6th level spell of any class with no component cost. That's fantastic. Ultimate in versatility. So maybe I'll be rolling up a Genie Warlock in the future for myself. And the Wizard gets a bunch of new spells to their class list, which is already well padded. and the ability to swap out cantrips after a long rest, which could be really super handy. So, Wizards, the ultimate versatile spellcasting class, becomes even more versatile, which obviously is our theme for this book. The Wizard gets two new subclasses. The first is blade singing. Now, those of you who played D&D for a long time knows that blade singers go back way back. Maybe second edition, could even be older than that. The concept of these elves who combine wizardry and sword fighting. Excellent flavor, and it's very solid mechanics here. Similar to Barbarian Rage, you can summon the Blade Song, which temporarily gives you boosted armor class, movement speed, and other things to help you in combat. So it looks incredibly fun to play. The second is the Order of the Scribe. This one is one of those subclasses that sounds good on paper, like it should definitely belong in the game, but I'm not sure I'm going to see anybody play it in real life. Pretty much you're really good at recording stuff. There's some spellcasting abilities that could be potent, but overall, I don't meet many players that want to be a scribe professionally. Maybe you'll change my mind. The next section has new feats, 15 in all. I won't go over all of them, but there are a couple that are worth mentioning. The first one I'm going to mention is the chef. I know, cooking is not super sexy in an RPG, but this feat is actually pretty potent. It allows you to get back extra hit points when you rest, and also you can gain temporary hit points, not just for yourself, but for your companions. So a lot of great mechanics for the group there. And the second is Shadow Touched. You get a +1 bump to intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, and then you can cast invisibility and one other necromancy or illusion spell per day for free. So excellent utility, especially for those classes that want to be extra stealthy. Then there's telepathic. It also gives you a +1 bump to your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, and it lets you to cast detect thoughts once per day for free. And even better, in my estimation, you can use telepathy to speak to an ally within 60 feet whenever you want to. Really cool for stealth missions. Chapter 2 introduces a concept called group patrons. A group patron is an organization or an individual that is a benefactor for the party. Now, D&D has been doing this informally forever, with thieves guilds, mage guilds, noble benefactors, people that take the player characters under their wing, maybe give them missions, that kind of stuff. These are just rules to sort of flesh out that idea. There's lots of different patrons listed, each with lots of examples. My favorite might be like, the eldritch or ancient one, could be a lich or a dragon, something very old and powerful that takes the party under their wing. This will just help you with some ideas for your campaigns, and I think it's awesome. I already have one mapped out for my next campaign. I can't wait to launch it on my characters. Chapter 3 deals with magic. There are 21 new spells, ranging from cantrips up to 9th level. I think 9 of them are summoning spells, though, so I think that area of magic did need some more material, so I'm glad to see that. And then there are magic items, of which there are many in this book. There's a cool new type of item called tattoos. You can have a needle that puts a magical tattoo on your character. It's a very cool move that they allow you to design your own tattoos, where they're located, what size they are, to really super customize your character idea. And they got some cool abilities, some of which, are one-time uses, some you can use over and over again. A very neat idea. There's also 6 new artifacts. Some are new, some have returned from older editions of D&D, like the Mighty Servant of Luco, the Crook of Rao, those kind of things. I love seeing high-level items and spells introduced because I think that high level play doesn't get as much attention as the low and middle tiers of D&D, so they get a big thumbs up from me. The fourth and final chapter is DM tools. They start with how to run a session 0, which if you watch my last video about building a campaign, I went into some depth there, and they flesh it out pretty nicely here. How to introduce house rules, how to build a social contract with your players, how to build the party, that kind of thing. Very helpful. Also, they have a new concept called sidekicks. NPCs that help the party have been in the game forever. Sidekick is a new take on it, especially for campaigns where it's just a single player, maybe 2 players. A sidekick is an easier way to have like a henchman that comes along. Instead of rolling out the complete character sheet for each one, it's a little bit streamlined. There's 3 types. There's the expert, which is like your rogue. The spellcaster, it can be like a mage or a cleric type, and then the warrior type. Interesting rules. I don't think I'll be using it much in my campaigns because I have a pretty large group of people already, but you never know. Then there's a section about parlaying with monsters. It pretty much breaks down different monster types and what they might like as an offering, I guess, to buy their friendship. It's an interesting concept, and some of the things are kind of funny, like what would an ooze want? Interesting. I'm not sure we're going to use it very much, but then again, if my group's ever roleplay trying to sweet talk a black pudding, I'll know where to look. The next section is about environmental hazards. This is interesting. It's broken down into different types. Of course, there's like natural hazards like avalanches and stuff, and magical storms that you can unleash on your characters. But there's a different section here that deals with regions. Like if you have an area in your world that is haunted or touches the Feywild, now you have a lot of material about what the players might find there, including some charts to roll on for random effects. So that's a very cool idea that I hope to install in my campaigns. And the last section is puzzles. They ask you to write out a number of puzzles. Some are word puzzles, logic puzzles, and such to unleash on your party. They're each rated by difficulty, easy up to difficult or hard or whatever. I read a couple of them out all the way through, and they're challenging. Very cool. If you are a player, don't read these sections. Trust me, these puzzles are very cool and very intricate. You'll feel so much better, figuring them out for yourself rather than reading about them, because once you read it, you know all the tricks to it. But for DMs, really solid addition to offer some puzzles to your encounters. Overall, I really like this book. I think it's a really good addition to my library, mainly because of the versatility it lets the players to have with their characters. I love offering new abilities, powers, subclasses, spells, all that stuff. I don't have any feedback about the spells as far as if any are overpowered. That does happen once in a while with these splat books. But on first glance, everything looks pretty well balanced and pretty fun. So I intend to have most of this material open to my players for our next campaign. And I fully, heartily recommend, if you're deep into 5th edition, to pick this one up. It's a good one, and it's worth the wait. Well, that's my first impression of this new book, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Love it, and hope you enjoyed the video. And please hit the subscribe button below and share this video with your friends. That means an awful lot to us. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time here on AOO. Have a good one.